PT. Wait, am I pausing that? No, I'm pausing that. Switching that. This is the Aune T1se. And people screamed about it when in the comments of one of my videos. Like, yes, you gotta do the Aune or I'm gonna hate you forever, won't be your friend. So I'm like, I love Aune. My Aune stack, it's Aune? Aune? I don't know. You tell me. A-U-N-E. There's no way to pronounce that in English. My Aune stack there. X7S balanced and the X1S. I could have removed them. They could still go. I don't even ever use them, but they're there because I love them. Now, I did replace my S7 with the 789 because the 789 is a juggernaut, bitch. And the S7 was great, but not enough power. It had some weird output impedance. So, moving on. Very recently, I fell in love with a hybrid tube. That, the X2O TA10, literally cried the tears because balanced 909s. Now, that's more expensive than this by a bunch. You can see it, it's in the black, it's darkness. And I'm gonna reference it a few times, but we're gonna keep in mind it's about $100 cheaper than that. So when I point at that and say I like that's ability to do this better, keep in mind $100. So, hybrid tube. I'm about to count on my fingers. USB input or line input and has a DAC output RCA. Just a DAC output, just like the Aune, where you can't, because I'm feeding it line in from the Geshelli Labs Enog, and I want to use that and this to compare how the DAC sounds. It's got the funky giant, wait, hold on, you need to witness this, the fish tank. I call this a fish tank transformer, because you ever have a fish tank with it's got one of these, I guarantee it. It's a 12-volt push-pull, which means it's got more than 2 connectors. In fact, it's got like 6 connectors, 5, a lot. All Aune stuff comes with that giant power brick. Literally every single thing they make uses the exact same power brick. And it's this monster connector here. Here's your power switch in the back. And then you have the line or USB switch on the top. And then nothing to switch in the front, just your headphone output. And here on the bottom, we've got gain settings. Now, we are set to 0 dB gain, which is fine, because I've got the 2 headphones I picked out to play with all this stuff were HG600s and the Neumann ND-H20s. The 2 headphones that I think show off a tube the best. I turn on my dark voice, you plug either one of these in there, and you go, oh, fuck Rika. But that's not necessarily true when you plug it into lesser tubes or tube hybrids, because those are usually powered solid state and just use the tube section to sort of feed signal. So I came to the conclusion that the X2O TA10 is quite good, but it had a shitty stock tube, required swapping. I found a GE tube. Then I recently, in fact today, unboxed a 1955 GE tube that I found. Somebody had tested on eBay. I picked it up, I put it in there. I'm not quite sold on it yet. It's got some weird properties that maybe the other newer GE tube doesn't. This is running the stock tube. Why? Well, because I wasn't prepared to swap tubes on it, and it also is a Russian tube. What are you? I can barely read the label. EH, 22 EH. These little plastic covers. Pasta actually unboxed this thing. And when she did, she had to put these little plastic guards over it. And they are rather flimsy, but they just sort of like pop in. So you just pop that out if you wanted to. I do like the design. Like the X2O here is a like legit tube amp looking thing. Big power brick in the back. Here's your outputs in the front. Again, rear on-off switch. All aluminum chassis. Like this thing is built like it's designed to withstand small arms fire. Now, the Aune is not quite up to the build spec of its predecessors of the solid state family. It's more like one of the lesser topping builds for those of you who are really into like headphones and know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, oh yes, oh yeah, I can see what you mean by the lesser topping build. So it's got this nice finish aluminum, but you could feel it's a little thinner, a little tinier. And then the top, there's a seam all around. So that's how they put it together. So it's not quite as nice as something like the X2O or the older other TA stuff. Don't fall asleep on me yet, baby. I need you. Top volume knob is always a favorite of mine. The Mica Origin probably gets up like 2 more notches because I can simply bring my hand over and do this. Doing this requires more weird muscle control than just this. Ever remember those remote controls used to do things like that? I like this. So aesthetically, it's cleaner than most hybrid tubes. Just look at it. It's ideal. It's perfect. You can't put anything on top of it, which is probably a beneficial thing because the tube does get warm. Not quite as hot as you would think it should get, but I've been running it now since I moved it on. Let me see, I put it on the desk for the final review an hour and a half ago, and it's just like the whole box is just warm. Pleasantly warm, not hot, just pleasantly warm. So I think you're just going to be fine. I think it's just fine. The volume pot is well indicated, a little divot, but it's well enough because it's, again, on top. When something's in front and you can't see it, that's when I have to start putting stickers on it. But it's on top, and you can see it goes there, and then there, and then there. And you can see actually min and max. They've made it so that minimum is right in front of you and maximum's over there. You got these little exposed switches for on, off, and here. And you could just see threads with no like nut in it. So it's a little, it feels a little bit homemade. A very good homemade. If you just handed me this and said I made this in my garage, I'd be real fucking impressed. But it's a little less than like perfect. But it does have a lot of stuff going on. Excuse me, clicking this. So it's got a built-in DAC. And according to Amazon, hold on. According to Amazon, $24,192, right? But it also is DSD capable. And it uses a Russian tube, the EH6922, which is what I read, and has a line in port, and uses the latest XMOS design, which together with IEC DSC7 T1 decodes 24-bit wanted DSD. So why is it, tell me this, riddle me this, people of the internet, why is it that when I plug this in USB to this laptop, the only option I get is 32-bit? And I mean the only option. Usually you get like a sound device and you plug it in. It's like you want to do 16-bit, all these kilohertz, 24-bit, all these kilohertz, or 32-bit, all these. This literally only does 32. So when I went to Asapi, I had to go into FooBar and change the output setting of a sample rate of 32 bits, or else it wouldn't work. So you'd have to use direct sound of 32. Now that might just be my setup. I don't know. This laptop never worked fully properly, but that's kind of weird. Either way, let's talk about how it sounds. I know it's a Z review. I should just hold off on how it sounds until like, well, never. I think for the stock tube with the line input, that's how this sounds the best. The DAC is not terrible, but I find it like there's this. I've been losing my mind. I've been putting the same song on Rika as I have been putting on laptop. I don't know what her name is or what she does, so I just was Rika and laptop. I've been starting them at the same time. This is a USB. That's Geshelli Lab Enog RCA'd into the back, and all I gotta do is flip that switch while I'm listening. I plug the headphones in. We put them on. We put on anything. Do you love it when a plan comes together? Yeah, that's great. Do whatever you're doing. Navigating the beach by Edge of Tomorrow. So here, I put Navigating the Beach by Edge of Tomorrow on here. And then I hit the enter key at the exact precise same time. Now the songs are playing synced. And now all I gotta do is switch. And I could judge the DAC in this. Because now I'm comparing the Geshelli Lab Enog 2, which I trust pretty much with my life. Even if it measures poorly on RCA versus it, just those 79s I do all my reviews with, yeah, they're coming off the Geshelli Labs. I've got like 2 more of those sitting in boxes, so when I just need a DAC, boom, whoop that out. So I know what that sounds like, 100%. And then I can flip from the Geshelli Labs to the internal DAC, to the Geshelli Labs, to the internal DAC. Nice and fast. I believe in fast switch. Some people will argue that, oh, if you really want to learn how a DAC sounds, like one of these really expensive, overly priced ones, you really need to spend like a week with it and just figure out the flavors and the nuance. And I'm like, well, how about I do this instead? I just flip a switch really fast. And if I hear a ka-ting, and then I flip it and I hear the same ka-ting, and there's no extra ka-ting on the ka-ting, then it's all the same fucking shit. Bitch. So, here's the problem. Slight volume discrepancy, which I could actually adjust in software. But I can definitely hear a difference between the two DACs. This one has a lot more... I pointed at the laptop, but that's representing the USB. The Aune's built-in DAC has a lot more mid-bass. Like, it sounds like almost muffled. There's like a slight closing in of the sound versus like just the RCAs coming from the Gashai Labs. So I'm just putting that in your head right now. And the other thing is, I do have this hooked up to these speakers, which are the Kanto Tux, because I know you're going to ask, because they're gorgeous. Aren't you, baby? So that's the Kanto Tux, and those are currently playing from the lineup. The volume does not control those. This is just our USB in. That's where Yoko Kanno Rush from Cowboy Bebop OST1 is playing. And the USB converting in the DAC, outputting RCA into the back of this, RCA in. That's it. That's just how that's getting signal right now. Now I also have these speakers hooked up optical from my computer. So no DACs, just the DAC in the speakers. And the problem is, I like the way the DAC in the speakers sounds better than this DAC as well. Now it's a $600 pair of speakers. It's a phenomenally good pair of speakers, but I just used these speakers with the topping DX3 Pro, and I couldn't tell the difference between the internal DAC and the DAC in the DX3 Pro. They were pretty much like on the money. But just like on this, when I go headphone versus line, I can hear the DAC is just slightly failing it. So, if you look at this, the problem is it's expensive. You're looking at like $180 for this right now. I think 170 something. That's a lot if you can't use the DAC. Now, I'm not saying you can't use the DAC. I'm just saying, compared to the DAC built into these speakers, which if I, let's see, what was that? This is Rush, right? Okay. Yoko Rush. Come on, you got this. Yes. Konosuba, no. Wait. Yoko Kanno. By the way, if you haven't heard, I don't care if you don't like anime. Please, for the love of God, find a place to listen to the Cowboy Bebop OSTs. So now I'm going to hit that button so it's optical. It's a completely different sound. Like, I just listened to that same opening on this, and it sounded like pressed and constricted and not warm. Like, I can almost understand warm if it was using the tube. But it's just compressed sounding. Like, stripped of anything that makes it, like, subtle. I was going back and forth, and there's some tracks I can't tell the difference between that DAC and this DAC. But there's other tracks where it's like, oh, well, shit, just that DAC. So for $170, you're basically getting just a tube amp, and it's just a hybrid tube amp. And I'd love to tell you how much power it puts out, like in a reasonable figure. But all they seem to say here is, hold on, I just had it. Where did you list it, you bastard? There you go. Headphone power output is 300 ohms, which is not where anybody else tells you their output power, but at 300 ohms, it's 240 milliwatts. So with the Sennheisers, which are 300 ohm, I can get 240 milliwatts out of it. How many watts does that make it at like 32 or 50 ohms? I don't know. All I know is I can push most headphones with it with ease. So at least it's got that going for it. Let's switch this back to the line in. Put this back on. Turn this volume up. Now, I did this test. So, if you're thinking about like, oh, skip that one, Zeos, you don't need this. So then I do this. And there's definitely whatever tube goodness is happening to these Neumanns. The tubey goodness comes through. So basically, I'm knocking it on its DAC. I'm saying, hey, DAC, look, your DAC's like, I don't know why it's only 32-bit on mine, and the whole of the internet tells me it's 24 only. But that's weird. The build quality is good enough. It's good enough. It's not the greatest. I want to flip these switches to higher gain, but there's literally no reason. I never once got even close to maxing this out. I don't know what the fuck you do with those. Like, usually you come down here. By the way, I love the way that it's like picking up my fingerprints, not coming off. That's oh, they got the caps are over here on the screws. Yeah, I have the gain on 0 dB. Unless this is negative and it actually brings it down. But they don't have a negative here. It's 0, 10, and 16. I leave it alone. Leaving it at 0. I would almost want them to bring the gain down a bit. So they could sort of relax that. Because it does... Like halfway on Neumann's means that you're pushing power. Oh, it does sound good. Look, it does sound good. If I switch to USB, this is Space Dandy playing. Electric Light Orchestra. Yeah, it's on. Wait a second. Oh, I have this still switched over. I gotta go cycle through all the things to RCA. Enya. Ruben Williams, great movie. Actually, that was a good song. That is from the Walking Dead OST. It's a very long. It's like Emily Kinney and Laura Cohen, Beth and Maggie Green, The Parting Glass. Like, I don't want to say that name, so just go look up the Walking Dead OST. Remember when that show wasn't shit? I remember. So that's there. Now it's in the headphones. Now, this is actually a very distorted song. Like, it's over-recorded on purpose. I hate that. Cover that up. We're trying to keep it from blasting the camera. Let's plug this back in here just for random what's playing. Aladdin. Oh, it sounds really good. Here. Yeah, no, it's still a tube. The 600s and the Neumanns still love a tube more than they love a good solid state. I mean, a great solid. I mean, the best solid state. They still, you get something else out of it with a tube. I'm gonna shut this off. Oh, there's an orange LED underneath that tube, and that's kind of lame. I mean, it's a good indicator of a power light. The X-Door has a giant fucking digital display in front. Got digital switch to switch between the inputs, which is another reason why it's $100. There's another set of RCAs. This only has one. This has two. This also has coaxial input, and it's got balanced output, even though it isn't balanced. Like, there's a reason that's $100 more. I think it's worth $100 more. I'm trying to think what the cheapest tube hybrid is that I recommend right now, because there aren't many out there. That's like the first one that I actually fell in love with. Like that, literally, you know where I got this? I'll tell you what, it wasn't in my closet. It was in my bed. My TH900s and this are in my bed. I go to sleep with them on. That's how good that is. Now this is not coming to bed. This is going in probably the yard sale. I don't think it's going to make it to Rocky Mountain. There's better choices to show off. So, if you'd like to buy this or win it in an auction, $5 a month gets you into my Patreon under the tier that lets you bid on these things in a yard sale. First to the 10th. You throw a random bid at it. It's $180. I want to give you $104.19. If you win, that's what you pay. If you're in the continental United States, I pay shipping. If you're in Indochina, you pay half shipping. I calculate out and bill you later. So yeah, I think my overall recommendation of this is, if you have one, fine. I don't think the tube is really at fault. I think this is more the internals. Whereas the stock tube was rather boring. Everything else was built perfectly, but they went with like randomchinatube.com. This is at least a Russian tube. They've actually done some shopping. I mean, Chinese and Russian tubes are pretty much the bottom of the barrel. Old Russian tubes can get interesting. But if you want to swap out tubes, you look for GE, you look for, I was about to say DynaQuest, and I don't think that's a real tube brand. I think my brain made it up. And if I would have said it with confidence, no one would have known the difference. But there are legit tube brands that are just not coming to me right now. And you can just swap it out. Swap out tubes. So you got the model number of it. You know exactly what to do. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what's causing these issues. The issue is either the DAC itself, or there's too much voltage going into something, and it's just twisting the signal just the slightest bit. I mean, it wasn't too loud. It's just, I certainly don't like the Kanto Tux on it. Almost more than on the headphones. The speakers were like, oof, ew. Ew. Do you not play anymore? Oh, I shut this off so it doesn't play anymore. That's David Houston almost persuaded. I don't think anyone cared. So yeah, like I said, yard selling this. I hope someone gets it and loves it. If you can feed it with another DAC, try that. Just try it. Even a topping D10 for 90 bucks. Put it into this unit. Tell me if it sounds better. It seems to have the power, and it does add the tubiness. It's just limited. It feels wrong to recommend this. If it was $110, it was a $110 version with no DAC in it. Absolutely. But since it's going to have a DAC and you can't use it, it's sort of like, fuck. So that's it. Her wallpaper, because she's almost best girl. I think I still go with what's her name. That's crazy. But her wallpaper in the description. Link to this in the description. Link to that in the description. Link to, I don't know, whatever. I don't want to give myself more work in the future, so I'm going to say very little right now. Link to a Danny DeVito cutout. And full-size Danny DeVito cutout. Life-size. I've seen it. I'll find it again. I'll link it in the description. After that, I will see you guys tomorrow. Again, please check out the RMAF GoFundMe. Check out the post for this on Hi-Fi Guides. It's the forum where the ghost is the most ghosts. It's just go there if you want. Usually it's a pretty cool, chill place with actually a couple thousand people on it now, which is fantastic. And I will just see you tomorrow. I'm gonna go to bed now. It's it's 1:20 in the morning. Peace, Rika. Peace.